welcome back to my video. I'm Ashfiatul Mardhiyyah from class 4B. In this video, I'm excited to share a romance novel that I've read. The title is The Marriage Dance by Jillian James. Guys, nowadays we can see many people, even celebrities, getting divorced on social media. And if we look at the data, there were 438,168 divorce cases in Indonesia in 2025. Wow! And the biggest cause of the divorce was continuous conflicts and arguments. And in many cases, the conflicts begin with poor communication. So guys, do you think love alone is really enough to build a happy marriage? That's exactly the question explored in The Marriage Dance. So now, let's begin the story. The story follows Annie Rose, a talented dancer who works at Ray Gifford Studio. Because she is the best performer in the studio, Ray Gifford becomes very protective and controlling. He wants Annie to focus only on dancing and believes marriage will ruin her career. One day, Annie meets Steve Hunter, a successful lawyer who is handling Ray's divorce case. Steve immediately catches Annie's attention because he is the only man wearing a formal suit in the dance studio. Besides that, he's also handsome and charming, so he's easy to notice. Curious, Annie starts talking to him, and although neither of them is looking for a serious relationship, they slowly fall in love. However, not everyone supports their relationship. Ray strongly disagrees because he doesn't want Annie to leave dancing. Steve's older sister, Rachel, also believes that a lawyer and a dancer are too different to build a successful marriage. Despite everyone's disapproval, Steve is determined to stay with Annie. At the same time, he receives a promotion at work. But there is one condition. He must be married. If not, the promotion will go to his biggest rival. Because of that, Steve proposes to Annie sooner than expected. Although Annie hesitates because everything happens so fast, she finally accepts his proposal. After Annie finishes performing in the famous Wedding Bells production, they get married. At first, everything feels perfect. They enjoy their honeymoon and happily begin their new life together. Unfortunately, that happiness doesn't last. Annie becomes busy again because she has to continue performing in the next wedding bells. She spends almost all her time rehearsing and often comes home only to sleep. Steps feel lonely and ignored, while Annie feels that Steve doesn't understand how demanding her career is. Their relationship becomes even worse when Steve grows jealous of Annie's dance partner, Mo Allison, a handsome and best male dancer who is already happily married. Things become even more complicated after Annie overhears a conversation that makes her believe Steve only married her because he needed the promotion. Although it isn't true, Annie starts doubting Steve's love. Then, something unexpected happens. After months of conflicts, Annie finds out that she is pregnant. She is incredibly happy because becoming a mother had always been one of her biggest dreams. However, she continues dancing despite her pregnancy until one day she suddenly collapses during rehearsal. Because of the accident, Ray immediately ends her contract. It also marks the end of Annie's career at Ray Gifford Studio. But instead of solving Steve and Annie's problems, the situation creates another misunderstanding. Steve feels hurt because Annie is willing to give up dancing for their baby, but she never seemed willing to do the same for him. On the other hand, Annie feels that Steve doesn't appreciate all the sacrifices she has made. Once again, both of them choose silence instead of communicating their problems. Then, one stormy day, everything finally changed. While driving to check on Annie, Steve suddenly sees a child running across the road. He swerves his car to save the child, but ends up getting into a serious accident. He is rushed to the hospital with several injuries. When Annie hears the news, she immediately goes to the hospital with Rachel. Seeing Steve lying in the hospital makes Annie realize how much she still loves him. For the first time in months, they stop blaming each other and finally have an honest conversation. Steve apologizes for rushing Annie into marriage and for failing to understand how important dancing was to her. Annie also apologizes for keeping her feelings to herself instead of communicating openly. They finally realize that the biggest problem in their marriage was never their different careers or their families or other people around them. It was their lack of communication. In the end, Annie doesn't give up dancing forever. Instead, she joins Junior to open a new dance studio where she can continue doing what she loves in a healthier environment. At the same time, she prepares to become a loving mother, while Steve flourishes to become a more supportive husband. So that's the end of the story, guys. I love reading this novel because it feels so realistic. And the story of Annie and Steve might happen to many people in real life. It teaches us that love may bring people together, but trust, understanding, compromise, and especially good communication are what keeping a marriage strong. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy this story retelling. See you!